Welcome to the Church Communications Podcast. We want to help you become a church communications expert. We understand it's a challenging and ever-changing role because we worked in the church too, which is why we built a community of over 30,000 church leaders that are ready to support and cheer you on. Your hosts for the show are Allred, Kenny Jahng, with special guest host from the Church Communications team. They're here to help you and equip you to better reach your community. We'll talk shop with practitioners, professionals, and communications experts about what's working, what's not, and what's next.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Church Communications Podcast. My name is Abby. I'm so excited to be here again with you today. We are continuing our series of getting to know our members, and today we have on with us Conrad Aylshire. Conrad, thank you so much for being with us today. How are you?
Doing great. Thanks for having me. Excited to see what we get into today.
Awesome. Yeah. So the reason that we invited Conrad to come on to the podcast, he actually jumped into the group. We had just posted like a little, tell us about yourself kind of post. And so people were chiming in there, telling us about their jobs and their experience in church comms. And Conrad made a post about his interests, of course, and things that he does at his church, but he had a very interesting kind of framework for some things that he's working on. So I'm excited to get into that, to hear a little bit more about it. But before we dig into that, Conrad, just tell us a little bit about you, a little bit about what you do and how you got into the church comms world.
Yeah, so I've been designing, I think, since I was like 13 or 14. One of my good friends put Photoshop like CS3 on my machine. He had like the key gen. Back then we didn't pay for Photoshop. Now you have to pay every month because they fixed that problem. So I've been doing like logos and shirts and like everything since I was a teenager.
Right.
So that's, professionally, I've been doing it probably 11 or 12 years now. And, handful of awards and all that stuff. I moved from a design agency in Dallas to Woodlands Church with Carrie Shook, very big church. So I've been doing church communications for about 7 years now. And so I'm the design director at the Woodlands Methodist Church. We're kind of like the second or fourth largest Methodist church in the nation, depending on who you ask. And so, 14,000 members, a lot of content, a lot of communications go out from here. And happy to just chat and kind of help where I can, answer questions, shine some light for maybe some of the churches that might be following our footsteps or looking for better ways to do stuff. So
yeah, absolutely. We love always sharing about new processes, easier ways to do things. So thank you so much for being willing to come on and talk about it. Sure. You mentioned in your post that your role is sort of interchangeable with like an art director. Based on so what do you do in the day-to-day? Like, what is your job like? You wake up and you go to work, and what do you do all day?
I make sure that everything is on brand, that everything has like a higher quality than just downloading a stock art and like slapping it on a graphic. Yep. Fortunately, I've inherited a very, very beautifully done brand identity, like visual identity for this church. So my predecessors did a great job there. And it's just kind of like, how do we maintain that, and how do we increase the ministries that we're bringing online to create their own graphics and their own kind of communications. My day-to-day is managing my team, helping guide them through their projects. I kind of personally tackle the larger projects, and then teaching, guiding, mentoring where I can, and then a lot of approvals.
Yeah, I bet. I bet.
So.
Well, that's really nice that you inherited a beautifully done, brand identity. I think a lot of our group members probably cannot say the same.
Sure.
And so they take on a role, maybe something similar to yours, and they inherit something that they don't feel like is good, but people are attached to already.
Right.
And I've just heard from some people, they're like, I came in and everything's a mess and I want to immediately change everything, but I don't want to make people mad or uncomfortable or, So do you have any maybe advice for people who are inheriting something that is a little less than stellar? Any just advice to maybe delicately handle that?
Yeah, the word of the season over here has been micro shifts. And so I think the auto industry does this really well. If you look at like the Mini Cooper, for example, iconic car, the style like changed subtly every generation and every generation. And now we have what we have now. So
Yeah.
if you can know where you want to go and you know where you are now, just start having the conversations and making small strides where you can look for like wins and opportunities for risk or just ways to kind of do something slightly different. And then over enough time, you'll end up getting where you want to be, if that makes sense. So.
Yeah, I think that's really good advice. So you said you have a team. I mean, you guys are a very large church. What is your team made up of? How many people, what kind of roles are on your creative team?
Sure. So I report to the creative director. He reports to the senior pastor. There's a technical director that is equivalent to me on the tech side. So that his guys, I call them the men in black because they wear all black. They're the guys behind the cameras, and so they work Sunday morning. They work the events that we have on campus. Audio, sound, lights, all that kind of stuff. And then there's kind of a pseudo web / interactive team. There's a web manager, and he's got a front end developer, and then like a kind of a content producer. She makes sure that the graphics that we make get to where they need to be, registration links or where they need to go. Let's see, there's a social media coordinator. We work with her to make sure that we're doing our best on social with whatever new algorithm comes out that month.
Yep.
Let's see. And then my team, the design team, there's me, the design director. I have 2 graphic designers under me. I have a part-time graphic designer that only does our bulletins. And then I have 2 project managers. One of our project managers has a print background, so she kind of handles all of our print vendors. She's always shopping the best prices, and then she pre-flights all of our print materials to make sure that our Pantones are the right ones, that our fonts and our packages, everything are good there. And then my other project manager, Kim, sorry about that, that's probably me. My other project manager is like our task manager. She makes sure that when we hit the desk in the morning that we know what we're doing, we know what we're working on, our deadlines are straight. And we also have a copywriter on staff that makes sure we're in ALA, AMA format. I don't know, it's beyond me. So I make a lot of typos, and I give Carol a run for her money, that's for sure. So.
She earns that paycheck. She's doing all.
She does.
It's always good to have someone like that.
Yeah.
Have someone like that around. Well, that's awesome. I'm just always curious to hear about people's team dynamics. And obviously, like in the group, we have people who have really big teams like you, and then we have people who are kind of doing it on their own. So aside from the creative work that you do, it sounds like you do a lot of managing people, a lot of, like it's a leadership role, of course. Do you have any advice there for people who are maybe moving up into a role like that? Like, what do you wish you would have known when you took over all of this responsibility of managing all these people?
It's going to be okay. It's going to be fine. I've only been in this role for like a year. I've managed teams before, but professionally, this is kind of like, and from the church's standpoint, this is their first glimpse of me as a manager. So one piece of advice that was given to me was just be yourself. And, don't specifically to me was don't change. You're a lot of fun. Just don't change.
Yeah.
And so I went and found mentors, and I ask a lot of questions. I think that's the designer in me, is to just want to know more and know more about the project that I have accepted. And so I read a lot. I watch a lot of YouTube, YouTube University for the win. Mm-hmm. Ask questions, go find people that are farther in their life than you, and see what you can learn from them. And I kind of wing it, man. It's just a lot of like flying by the seat of my pants. I don't know, I think I've been here long enough to kind of know the ins and outs of how this place operates. And so that's helpful. Mm-hmm. And then building relationships, just going and being nosy, like, hey, what are you working on today? Another department that has nothing to do with you. Mm-hmm. And just be, present and listen and learn, and just try and be as helpful as possible, and everything else kind of sorts it out. But understanding what you're supposed to do and what other people think you're supposed to do, and make sure those are lined up. And that's pretty Yeah.
That's a really good point. I feel like especially in the church world where maybe other people in other departments aren't as familiar with what creative jobs are like, especially creative church jobs, they and we hear this from a lot of our group members, like no one has any clue what I do. No one understands like the fact that church probably couldn't even happen on Sunday morning without our team. They have no idea what we
Right.
do.
Right.
And even from a leadership standpoint, like it's sometimes hard to get them on board because they have no clear understanding of what you do. So that's a very good piece of advice, to make sure that they think you're doing what you're actually doing, and vice versa.
What you're there to do.
Yeah.
Somebody had commented about in the group, actually, they have other ministries going rogue and making stuff on Canva. And one of my advices was like, make sure that they know that that's not coming from you or your team, and you're not responsible for that, because that can come back and bite you. You know, somebody can see something or make something that potentially somebody doesn't like, and then that defaults to you. If you're like over a department, it can get kind of messy. So yeah, just set good expectations. Not having good expectations. Our web developer, Derek, is one of those mentors kind of for me. He's a little bit older than me and like a big brother, but he said, trying to manage unspoken expectations is like trying to walk through a minefield. And so just, you know, hey, I'm going to do this, but it doesn't mean I'm going to do that. And then people are like, okay, got it. And then, yeah, as long as everybody's in agreement, it should be okay. So
yes, I think that's very good advice, especially because oftentimes you have like interns who will come on and they'll just start doing all this random stuff. They'll get moved up, and then a social media role also turns into web management, and it also turns into designing the bulletin, you know, and it's like all of these things just get piled on. So yes, lining out, setting those clear expectations and clear boundaries. That's good. I want to hear a little bit about, you mentioned this in your post. You were talking about, so you have a gift for creating efficiency in systems, and you're using that to prepare for launching churches. So that's something I really want to get into and hear about. So tell us, like, how did that come about? Where are you in the just tell us all the things about that. That sounds really interesting.
Yeah. So a little background. My dad is a chemical engineer, and then my mom is an artist. And so design is kind of like right in the middle. But my dad, I'm a twin. And so my dad, he's very efficient. And if my brother got a D haul, I had to stay for the D haul because he wasn't going to take me home and then come back and get my brother. So inherently, just I've learned about efficiency, excuse me, in that regard. And so if I can see a process all the way through from start to finish, you can start to begin to like remove pieces that don't need to exist, or somebody doesn't have to do anymore, and you can kind of automate. So again, I'm sorry about my notifications.
No, that's fine.
I just moved into this machine this morning, so it's all not set up properly. We have a plan or a goal to launch 2 to 3 churches in like 3 to 5 years. And then the master goal is to launch 20 churches in 20 years. If you've worked in church creative and church communications, that's a lot of work. You know, the way that we do it now is every kind of sub community kind of gets what they want. And so I had to quickly find a solution that helped us to scale. And, you know, if you do the same thing over and over again and expect different results, you know, like it's kind of insanity. So I decided we had to do something different in order to kind of break free and give us more creative freedom. And so Church Media Squad, big advocate for, you know, we at one point had 6 designers on staff, and then we got down to 2. It was me and another designer. And I was responsible for all the sermon art. And so we're unique in that we operate as if we're 4 churches in one. So every weekend we have 4 different kind of series going live.
Wow.
Yeah. And so that quickly ate up a lot of my time. You know, we track our time per project using some software. And so I was quickly able to pull a report that said I was spending 30% of my year only on sermon art. So Church Media Squad, I was able to pitch to leadership, hey, you know, it's a great bundle. I'm not getting paid to say this. They're just a great.
No, we love Church Media Squad. Yeah. We will sing their praises all day long. Yeah.
So, you know, they do kind of this bundled deal where the main church brand is one price, and then every additional brand is a smaller price. And so that's how I was able to kind of pitch that to leadership and our board of trustees. If we plan a church for a nominal amount of money, you can buy video and graphics at an unlimited rate, and you can't hire a designer or a video person for that. So the cost savings, if I were to hire somebody plus benefits and like all that stuff, it's like 120 grand a year to fill a designer and a video person. And then church media squad is like less than a third of that or something. Like it was just a no-brainer. So,
and they're so good too. Like you're not sacrificing
really
the quality.
They actually took our previous video guy, Ryan Perkins, and he works over there now. So if you get Ryan, he's really great. I mean, everybody's over there is great. So they kind of owe me one. But so there's that for custom stuff. I then, we had looked at Canva and WeBrand and all this other stuff. Our designers get paid a higher hourly rate than like an admin for a ministry or a ministry assistant. And I didn't want to pay them that higher hourly rate just to change type. Like, for example, we do a blood drive once a month. There's a slide, there's Instagram and social, all those graphics, and a hall banner. And it's like, just go change the date and time and the location. It was just like, how can we templatize this and pass it along?
Right.
Many hands make light work. So I had a friend who was in the secular world. He worked for Associa. They do HOA management. And so he was the creative director there. And they used a software called Binder, Binder. It's a digital asset management software. So there's a bunch of different modules. There's like the core DAM, the digital templates, there's a print one, there's video, there's all sorts of goodies. The project management stuff is pretty good. But essentially you can kind of create your own like light stock or iStock. So we upload all our assets, all our photos, all our logos, all our colors. Then in Photoshop, my team makes these templates, and then you lock them down. You can change the type, but you can't change the color. You can't move the background. You can't, like whatever.
Right.
And so at scale, we'll be able to make templates based on the most repetitive things that the ministries ask for, and then push them upstream from us. And so they can kind of do ministry on demand, right? We're in Houston, so we're prone to like hurricanes and natural disasters and stuff like that. So one of the templates that we're going to make is a disaster relief kind of post. So without having somebody on my team make graphics, the missions team can then, go in, use the template, make the social media stuff and post it like that. Right. And so our current process, we have a creative request form. The ministries take 20 minutes, fill it out. It's a very long, cumbersome form. Then it gets to my team, and then it takes about 2 weeks because we're so busy to turn it around. With Binder, they can do it in 3 seconds. It's literally just they type it in, then they download it. So it's going to allow us to, scale essentially, which is going to be great. So it does take a lot of upfront work. So I consider it like sharpening the axe. Yep. But it's not going to be much for us to bring on other churches or partner with smaller churches who can't necessarily afford designers and stuff like that, and say, here, if you want to partner with us on this program, your login, here's how the training is and the way they go, and then they can kind of live stream in our content, or however we want to set it up. So
that is so nice, because we do sometimes have those people who will go rogue, and even if you give them a template, they're going to be like, I don't like this font, I'm going to change it. I don't like this picture, I'm going to change it. And then you're like, well, you didn't even use the template. Why did I even give you that? So
yeah. So with this software, you can lock down everything. It's all, you can pick what photos they have access to choose from. For funeral slides, unfortunately, they can choose to upload their own photos, go on their Facebook page, get a photo from their family, that kind of stuff. We can upload pastor headshots into a collection, and then anytime a pastor's face appears, you just click the button and you can cycle through and have whatever pastor you want. And so it's very powerful. Actually, I got on a call with Ryan Hollingsworth. He's the creative director at Elevation, And I just was bugging him about how do we scale, because he was at Elevation when it was like 6 people in their design team. And then now that's like 80. They're a content like powerhouse. And so he was kind of talking about how they split up the workflows in their department. And I was like, hey, you've been so helpful. I'm looking at this thing called Binder. You should check it out. I sent him an email with the link, and they bought it that day, I think. And so it's very expensive, but it's like the scalability. We could do home group leaders, give them access, and they can make branded like, hey, home group at my house, this time, this location, whatever, and they can post it on their own social page or whatever. So I mean, we haven't even tapped into everything it can do. There's like a 16-week build-up time, and I think we're on like week 15 this week. So we launch soon. Yeah, it's going to be great. So
that is really cool. It just it sounds like a lot of work on the front end, but we have people all the time who are asking us and talking about the fact that it's so hard to manage all of the content, right? Like there's just so many things, and then you have so many people, and then you bring volunteers into it, because a lot of churches, don't have a whole team. And so they have either interns or they have, volunteers or whoever. This sounds like that would really solve a lot of the headache. And then you don't have to, because that always makes things awkward. You have to come back to people and be like, hey, like, please stop doing this. It looks really bad, and like hurt someone's feelings. So,
yeah. So Binder would be great for that. Again, I'm not getting paid by them either. I actually asked them, I said, I'm going to be on this podcast. Can you like slide me?
Yeah.
And they're like, we don't do that. So we offer a nonprofit discount, but they are excited to see, users like me talking about how it affects the church world. I think Life Church uses them, but again, they got like 10 billion campuses. So it only makes sense. But yeah, it would be great for volunteers. It would be great for anyone and anybody who can type and is willing to learn and participate and help. Many hands make light work, and our team is always drowning. So we kind of, shoot for, can we do this? And I think it's going to be super great. So from there, it's creating a workflow of, you've made this environment where your other teams can make content. How do you get them to put it through the proper channels and all that stuff? So working on that as well. We use a project management software called Wrike, W-R-I-K-E. There's a lot of automation in request forms and stuff. So basically, Kim, our task manager, she makes thousands of tickets a month, and just like manually. And so now that I've inherited, her underneath me, I had to figure out, how do we go from Binder to Wrike so my team can take these assets and put them where they need to go. And so now I'm learning how to automate her job, and that frees her up to be a better project manager and not so much a task manager. And so yeah, automation, like if you can pay to get it done, like I would suggest going that route if you have the budget. And that frees us humans up to be creative and do stuff like that. So,
well, going back to your design request form.
Sure.
People are always talking about that. Everyone's always trying to come up with like their dream project request form, communications request form, whatever. People call it different things. But you said yours is very long, which is interesting. What's the process for that? How does someone access it to put in the request? Like what's the process there?
Yeah, so I didn't build this. Again, I inherited this one, and we were in a previous system. It got moved to Rock. We use Rock as our database for our church membership kind of stuff like that. And so the current form is built in Rock, and we're moving it to the Wrike, Rock and Wrike. We're moving it to Wrike because it has dynamic request forms, so that you can kind of inject logic. So it's like, if you select this, then you have these options, or if you select this, then you have these options. So we are implementing the tiered system by Kem Myers, Less Chaos, Less Noise. So if you haven't read that book, that's a great book. We did it as like a leadership team study. And so we're kind of copying that, and then we're gonna like implement that into the workflow. So, or into in the form, so that people get what they need rather than asking for the moon, because we have very small accounts and ministries asking for, I want video, I want outdoor advertising, I want like this and this. It's like, you guys have 7 people coming for coffee, like once,
you don't
so
really
it's,
need that.
yeah. So getting ahead of that and getting the backup and the approval from leadership to kind of help with that is a must. But yeah, creative request forms, gosh, the important ones you need to know is who sent it so you can contact them, what's their email, what ministry, what's like the campaign or project that they're working on, when does it need to go live, and then like what deliverables roughly. And that's, I mean, you can get away with a lot and you can kind of muscle through, but helping them understand, this is the unspoken expectations thing again, helping them understand you have a turnaround time, add padding to your turnaround time, right? Like we can do this, we can't do that, and it's going to be unique to everyone, so for the binder one, it'll be an implementation request form. It's not like I've made this, now help me get it to where it needs to go. So that one will be a lot easier because there's no back and forth. But yeah, it's kind of unique to everyone. But there's 7 steps to the design process. The first one is accept the project. That is the foundational. What am I doing? What am I responsible for? When is it due? What am I not doing? What are your expectations of me? And if you can nail that in your form, I haven't seen a form where I'm like, dang, that's a really nice form. I think everybody kind of yearns for like perfection, but it doesn't exist because somebody's always going to kind of try and we have people that game the system, they're like, oh, I can, if I submit it this way, I can get this and this. And it's like, so the new form, we can have it to where if they request something that's outside of a tier that they're approved for, it'll get kicked to their supervisor. And so if they're trying to game the system, they'll be like, no, that's not what you got, So accountability is huge. If you can kind of build that in, and just awareness, you need to have your entire team aware of kind of what the rough boundaries and rules are, so.
Yeah, definitely. Back to that expectations thing. And I mean, I've heard people say like, I don't want to make my request form too long because then people end up not using it and just sending me an email and asking me to do something. But I think I err on the side of, I like to have all of the information up front, obviously. Like if you're the designer, if you're the person
Sure.
creating it, I want as many details as you can give me. And it just, I think, sets the expectation for the person requesting it. Like, this takes a lot of work. This takes a lot of time, right? Because in their head, it's like, oh, you're going to pop out a graphic really quick. Like they don't oftentimes know everything that goes into it. So I think having a longer request form kind of sets that expectation on the outset. And then you just have to make sure that people are, using it.
Yeah. Good luck with that. I don't have any advice on that part.
That's what I was going to say. Do you know the secret there? Because I haven't found anyone yet who does.
Big stick, I think. But, I think too, if your form is too long, consider chopping it into different forms for different needs. Like an event form is different than a communications form or a graphic or a video, like there's different ways to kind of to do that. And I think then you can kind of narrow their expectations through one avenue. So
cool. Well, are there any other softwares, tools, anything that you would recommend? Everything that we've talked to up to this point, I will link in the show notes because I know that there's going to be people who want to know. So if you just want to rapid fire some,
I will say everything. I have expensive taste, and everything that we've talked about today is fairly expensive. So the squad is great, super expensive. Not really. I mean, it's if you're going to hire somebody, it's super affordable. Binder. Again, it's a negotiated thing, so I'm not going to give numbers, but it's pretty expensive. Reich, the project management system, it integrates with Binder. If you don't have a project management software, any type of project management software is better than Zero, Asana, Monday, whatever, Basecamp, you can, that kind of stuff is great. We use Microsoft Teams. I wish we used Google, but we don't.
Only so much you can do there.
Yeah. Slack or Discord, whatever your favorite kind of thing is. We use a Fiery for our printing. You can control more options, I think, that kind of stuff. That's about it. Photoshop, you gotta have your Photoshop and your Creative Cloud. Envato Elements, we lean on that. iStock, Lightstock, it's not, I think this goes back to expectations. People think we're going to hand draw everything or go make a custom photo. It's like, I got 1,000 things to do today. So whatever that shortcut is to make it look nice, I think, it's okay sometimes. So, but yeah, as far as softwares go, that's pretty much our bread and butter.
Cool. And you mentioned a book, Less Chaos, Less Noise, and
Mhm.
you've been reading that together as a leadership team. Any other recommendations for either books that people should read or just like
Sure.
exercises or things that you can implement to just like create a cohesive team structure?
I don't think I have it. Atomic Habits by, I think it's James Clear.
James Clear, yeah.
Amazing book. Sprint by it's a Google guy. Anyways, it's just Sprint Google guy book. Whatever, Google it, you'll find it. He talks about how to go and make large projects in like 5 days. It's absolutely amazing. Um, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People or whatever by
Mhm.
Evie. Currently, I'm reading Principles by Ray Dalio. He's like a eccentric billionaire investor. But it talks about work principles and like life principles. And so I think just, how you make decisions and your process of making decisions can like make or break you. So if you're just kind of going in willy-nilly without a plan, you can expect those kind of results. So, but yeah, we pick just kind of different books. Sometimes it's a pastor pick, sometimes it's a problem to solve kind of book. But always keep learning, always keep reading. That's my biggest recommendation.
Cool. I love that. Well, is there anything else that you would like to say to the church communicator who's listening? Any piece of advice or something you maybe wish you knew before you got into this world? Before we sign off, anything else you have for them?
I think for the smaller churches, because it doesn't change even at scale here. I feel like I'm like suiting up and going to battle every day, like the enemy's out to get us really. And that's why I don't mind sharing this stuff with you because we can all use the help. But the smaller churches, it's like do the good fight, do as best you can. Even when it feels like nobody's watching or nobody's aware. I think that's when you need to push more. There's been times where I was like, man, is this even like gonna affect anything? And sure enough, I'll hear like years or months later, like, oh my gosh, like this like is what made me come to Christ or whatever. Huge impacts for the kingdom and all that stuff. So lean in, create a good group around you, complain in the church comms thing about your pastor. They probably won't see it. Make jokes there, keep it out of your email. But yeah, if you see me on the Facebook group, tag me, message me, whatever. I'm happy to answer any questions or just kind of be a resource to anybody who wants some help or whatever. So
awesome. Well, thank you so much, Conrad. This has been such a great conversation. And like I said, I will link all of the things, all the resources so that people can have access to them. And we'll see you around the group.
Perfect. Thanks, Abby.
Thanks for joining us for this episode of the Church Communications Podcast. If you want to learn more, join over 30,000 church leaders in our Facebook group at churchcommunications.com/group. If you liked today's episode, be sure to subscribe and leave a review. It's the most impactful way you can help us reach more church leaders and equip them to better communicate for the church. Finally, don't forget to check out our website at churchcommunications.com. Thanks for listening.